from Alaska Premier Auctions is in our house today. She is on our webinar stage and she has done so many benefit auctions and she's done them with Auctria and she has raised millions of dollars for amazing charities up in your area. And I appreciate you, Mekenzie, for taking the time to pull all this together and to share it with our constituents, everybody that's joining us here today. Thank you, Mekenzie.
Of course, I am super excited to just kind of show everyone kind of what we've been doing and how we help set everyone up for success, and really see how else we can continue to help and inspire other people to continue doing amazing fundraising work.
And by the way, we didn't even talk about this, but they are very active on Instagram. They are a great follow on Instagram and Facebook. They're always posting their events they're at, the behind the scenes. They've got some funny stuff on there to follow. And it's really refreshing and it's inspiring to see all the work that you're doing, and be able to pick up little nuggets just from a little Instagram post. So I know that's a lot of work and I appreciate it personally.
Definitely, that is all our marketing department, and I love working with them, and they are just really the powerhouses in making sure that all of our social media looks and feels great and just keeps getting engagement going, because what works for everyone is going to work for us, and we make sure that everyone is really just in tune with what we're doing so that we can inspire other people.
It seems like a really integrated team. So Mekenzie is the benefit auction manager at Alaska Premier Auctions. I mentioned that. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, so I actually came from Florida initially. I've been with the company just over 2.5 years now. I am going into my third year. And with that, I've become the benefit auctions manager here. And last year alone, we helped raise over $4.5 million for our local nonprofits across 40 organizations. So really making a huge impact in our local community, especially with how close-knit and small Alaska is. We've really definitely made a difference, and I am very proud and happy to be a part of it, and just continuing to see what works and making sure that we are strengthening those connections and making sure that all of our clients and our nonprofit partners are really making the most that they can.
Super. Love for everybody to put into the chat pod where you're tuning in from, what kind of organization you're fundraising for. If I'm new to you, my name is Lori Hockman. I am the Director of Growth and Strategy here at Auctria. I am not here alone. I've got an amazing team that helps us pull all this off. And this is just a recent photo of us at our Auctria Summit this summer up in Canada, where Auctria is headquartered. This is what our agenda looks like. We're theming this. We've got the blue and the red, and they equal purple. We're going to talk about ticketing, event revenue streams, paid services versus volunteers, maxing out the software, data, good data in, you get good data out, some feedback, and making it memorable. So we're going to go ahead and start to roll through our agenda. Mekenzie, I'm going to give you the keys. She brought around some videos and all sorts of fun stuff. Drop any questions into the chat pod. Also, a little bit of fun of housekeeping. Yes, you will get the slides. Yes, you will get the replay. And I will give you Mekenzie's contact number afterwards, because she is an absolute dream to work with.
Awesome. So like we mentioned before, we're really going to kind of do the red and the blue. Blue is your logistics and your planning overall throughout the event, and just kind of all of the thinking and planning side of things. Red is going to be the passion, the mission of your organization, and what you want people to remember. How are you keeping people engaged? What is your harmony and your love to your mission and your organization? Purple, we're the Big Purple Auction House here in Anchorage, Alaska. We have the perfect blend of the blue and the red, and making sure that we have all of the red and the blue, that we are making connections to your mission, to the logistics, and we're making sure that everything's executed in a way that is professional and profound to your mission.
Did you want me to advance, or did you want to do it?
Please.
Sure.
All right.
Did I skip one? I'm sorry.
Right. So with ticketing kind of being the first thing that we look at whenever we begin our planning process, on the blue side with our logistics, a lot of the times we want to look at having high ticket prices, with it kind of giving that feel for what to expect of an event. Higher tickets kind of people think more high class events. They have a higher notoriety of attending. The pre-selling and planning all of that in advance really does affect the quantity that you have available. If you want to have a VIP ticket, you'll have that at a higher price level, to kind of really add in that exclusivity and the more of the exclusive feel for the event. Your venue selection will definitely tie into your ticket pricing, how many tickets you have available, and all of that really is the logistics side of your ticket pricing. On the red side, we do have wanting to have your ticket prices low and making sure that it's accessible for everyone in your organization to be able to attend, and any of your supporters to be able to come and attend. That does kind of end up being more of what we call a fundraiser. So you have to find some balance in there and making sure that your fundraiser isn't overpowering the fundraiser aspect. The naming the tickets, you always want to kind of play into you always want to really play into, if you have a theme or anything, you can name your tickets, and or if you have a mission centered ticket naming structure or sponsorship naming, you can really go in and just kind of hone in on your naming for your sponsorship levels. It can get a little confusing if people aren't sure, but it can be done really effectively if it's done the right way. So
Oh, sorry, did I move too fast? Just yell at me.
You're good. You're good. So when we go into our purple tip for how we effectively see ticket sales being done, you should always really plan to cover your costs, your hard costs in your ticket sales and your sponsorship sales, so that anything that you do with the auction and your Funny Future paddle raise is above and beyond, so that you're not just sitting and hoping that your auction makes you break even. You should be trying to break even with your ticket sales and sponsorships, and making sure that all of that is covered in advance. By pre-selling in advance, you are able to really plan better for your attendance and all of your catering costs, because whenever you start to sell at the door because you want to accommodate more folks, you end up with more confusion and kind of hassle and struggle trying to fit people into tables and making sure that you have enough food for everyone, and it can just kind of end up more of a pain than it ends up being worth. And then opening your sponsorships in advance really allows you to kind of sell that exclusivity. Say, hey, are you going to sponsor us and add your notoriety of your brand into our event to where we can truly honor you, to where making those small individual ticket sales are a lot easier to fill in afterwards, because you should have 70 to 90% of your tables sold through sponsorships or table sales before your individuals. It just makes the whole process a lot easier and seamless whenever day of event actually comes. And pre-registering guest information from sponsors with Auctria has become super easy, with all of the pre-populated emails to send out to the sponsor and ticket purchasers saying, hey, please fill out your information. We capture all of that in advance so that we can make sure that out of those, if we say we have 100 attendees, if 90 of them come in with their information pre-vaulted, then our registration time is exponentially faster, and it makes it a lot easier to just make the whole thing go smooth. So a good example that I have here is the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. We're hosting their event here on October 4th. Their sponsorships went out to their current sponsors and supporters of their organization that they have before opening it up to the public, so that their current supporters and their core people who do really care about their mission and everything really do get that exclusivity of, hey, you're important to us, I want you to come. And then once the ticket sales and everything kind of died down, then they opened it up to the public and started pushing it there. And being able to get that engagement from your core supporters really makes a difference in the impact that your in-person event has, because those people know your mission, they know your values, and they want to support you. And being able to be a part of that event just really does make a difference.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then another thing that we always recommend is shooting for the moon with a title sponsor. Even if someone does not end up being your title sponsor this year, you still want to put it out there as just kind of that little nugget for people to think about, so that if your corporate sponsor does have a fantastic time at your event, maybe they will consider being your title sponsor next year. So they have like an amazing time, and generally speaking, we typically see people custom create this title sponsorship to what the sponsor is actually looking for. So it doesn't have to be a preconceived list of sponsorship opportunities and things. It can be created and crafted to whatever that sponsor wants and is looking for out of a title sponsorship. So it's always just good to have it out there, even if someone doesn't end up purchasing it.
I agree with you, Mekenzie. Did you want to talk about this from the Auctria side, or shall I?
You can.
So Mekenzie did a beautiful job putting the sponsorship up. Here's another example. If you have multiple layers and you pin that, behavioral psychology and pricing psychology gives you, oh, well, if that one's $5, then the 2,500 is a bargain. So it's all about price adjusting there, kind of like when you go into, the store and you want to pick up the bigger bundle, that sort of thing. Easier to put on the system. Your registers are open 24 hours a day. People can grab it and go. If they want to come in and bring you a check, that's fine too. But what happens is when you record everything through the Auctria platform, then the sponsor will show on the page automatically. It will go to their link if you have their URL, and it just streamlines everything from start to finish. And here's just an example of the sponsorships dashboard. If you haven't been on there, it's a good place to hang out to set up your sponsorships so that you can do all the things that Mekenzie was just talking about. Let's go ahead and shift over to event revenue streams.
Awesome. So event revenue streams is really everything that makes an auction, an event work. There are a myriad of different ways that you have different revenue streams for an event. So part of the blue side of things is actually knowing what exists. There is your live in-person auction, your silent online auction, a paddle raise or fund a future, mission moment, cash call, whatever you choose to call it, and then your games and raffles. With each revenue stream, you need to actually make sure that you have the proper procedures in place to set them up and execute them effectively at your in-person event. And not only just setting them up, but actually being able to sell and properly implement them into your run a show and timeline, and making sure that you're not just scrambling, trying to get things sold and not run into other things and mess up your timeline for the overall event. So making sure that you actually have those set rules and guidelines for what your run a show is going to look like really does help make everything run better and ultimately raise you more money. With the red side of things, we really want to make sure that we're matching the price with your price point. Your price fair market value for any of the games or raffles that you're doing should be 10 times your cost of entry. So example, if you have a $25 entry, you should have around a $250 fair market value prize, if not more. And those items and prizes should have a broad appeal to engage as many audience members as possible. You also want to make sure that you're taking the proper amount of time for these things. A lot of organizations can be kind of concerned that it will derail from the mission and they won't have time in their program because they have speeches or award ceremonies or other things that they want to cover in their program. So really just making sure that you have all of it implemented in a way that makes sense. Yes, so the price point, it should be 10 times the cost of entry as a general guideline. So the fair market value, if you have, say, a $25 entry price, you should have around a $250 prize.
Awesome. Thank you. I know that I'll drop that in there so that it's sitting there. And then you brought along some credible examples of all these.
Yes. So if we are looking back at prizes, we should have really a wide appeal to make sure that, you know, if you have a beautiful piece of jewelry, you may think that piece of jewelry is beautiful, but someone else in the audience may not. So really just making sure that whatever you have your prizes at is going to actually make sense for your audience. Or if you have a very, you know, kind of heavy emotional crowd, you don't necessarily want to have a prize that doesn't really make sense for what you have going on. Your price points, you want to have different revenue, like different games and revenue streams that actually make sense for every attendee in your audience to say yes. So if they can't participate in your live auction, maybe they could play in a game, or they could buy a raffle ticket. So you're still making sure that you're capturing and engaging every member of your audience. And even if they can't attend or even if they can't participate in certain aspects of the event, you want to make sure that they can. And it really just helps make everyone feel that warm and fuzzy, and
Sure.
really just make sure that everyone is happy and engaged in the event. The lower the barrier to entry, the more engagement you see. So your lower price points, you want to make sure if someone can't afford a $100 raffle ticket, you have something at the $25 price point for them. What I really
Because they love your cause and they
Mhm.
want to spend some money. Give them that
Yes.
avenue, right?
Mhm. Something that we really hone in on with our company specifically is we try to recognize sellers versus data entry folks independently. So you should have your sellers and people actually inputting the sales into Auctria or whatever software you're using as independent things. So you can have really chatty salespeople working the floors and actually selling your revenue enhancers, and then kind of doing a little receipt and bringing that back to someone who's maybe more tech savvy and not as public facing, and they can do all of the data entry into Auctria. And Auctria actually has a really fantastic way to do all of your for sale items and revenue streams and all of that built out into the software. And it just makes things a lot more seamless, and you have less cooks in the kitchen whenever you're able to have only 1 or 2 people doing that data entry, as opposed to maybe you have 5 or 6 to 10 even sellers who are actually out working the floor and talking to your crowd.
Awesome. Thanks, Mekenzie. I know there's a lot of stuff on this page. You're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
distill this for us, right? But there's so much on it. Like, how do you narrow it down? It's amazing.
So a really great example of an organization who had a price point for every audience member to say yes was the Alaska Zoo, who we helped recently back in June. They had a couple of different raffles: their wine glass raffle, a table auctioneer for their centerpieces, the paddle drop at the end of the night, antlers or tail feathers, which is a modified heads or tails, and then the Red Fox naming rights raffle. So there was a bunch of different price points and a bunch of engagement, and all of the prizes were zoo centric, and it all made sense for the audience because they were supporting the zoo. That's what they were there for. And so everything just kind of made sense and was really cohesive into the mission, and everything worked. Everyone really loved every single thing. Everything got interaction and engagement. It was just a very overall fun event, and being able to integrate and change the theming a little bit on certain things to like push it towards the zoo mission really just kept things really fun and engaging.
Awesome. And I'm going to tie this back to, this is why Mekenzie asked in the beginning, you know, what are your goals? Is it donor engagement, and is it donor retention? Because if they're at the event and they're having fun and they take that energy back with them, then you are going to retain them. Maybe they will do recurring donations later. Maybe they will come to some additional events. I know the zoo is awfully busy with a lot of their activities that they do after that. And then within, Mekenzie had mentioned it, within the Auctria software, it's so easy to put for sale items up. If you have an activity that's going on, whether it be drinks that you're selling, specialty drinks that night of, if you're doing casino night and being able to sell the casino chips, if you have a wine wall, a whiskey wall, any of that, you can do it very easily. People can either scan a QR code, pay for it themselves. You can have somebody roaming the room and do it through the admin app. And it just makes everything easy. So upon checkout, the person can close out their tab at the end of the night from their seat. It's super, super easy.
And for anyone who doesn't know how heads or tails work, I do have a fun little video here to show. And then we'll also go into another revenue stream that we see, Dessert Dash, and go into kind of Auctria's features for Dessert Dash as well. So we'll do those videos back to back.
Awesome. I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to hit mute on my mic also.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, heads or tails? Heads. We're thinning out the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, heads or tails?
Wait for it.
Heads.
Awesome. Somebody said that it wasn't showing, or they don't believe there's sound. Can anybody confirm whether they saw the video? It should be showing. I will send you the connection to the video so that you guys can watch it. Let me try the other one. I see it in here. Video and sound is working. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the Dessert Dash then, and I'll attach these for the replays. That way you can watch them amongst your team afterwards, so that you have a second round of them.
3, 20, 1, 5, 4, 2, 7, 11, 16, 2, 9, 11, 12, 13, 17, 19, 20, and 22.
They are moving fast, Mekenzie.
Oh yeah, Dessert Dash is always super fun when put in the right place in the program and with the right organizations. It can be a really fun way to lighten the crowd, lighten the room, and just kind of get that energy back up and have some dessert, especially if your catering doesn't cover it.
For sure.
But yeah, it is a lot of fun, and you're able to get a lot of engagement that way. Dessert Dash is one of those things where people name their price and they choose how much they want to pay for their desserts. And ultimately, if someone doesn't want to pay a lot, they're going to go at the bottom of the list to go and pick their desserts. So it does end up really fast paced and really fun and engaging. Auctria does actually have a new Dessert Dash section, and it makes things super easy to clerk and get everything set up that way. You can, if everyone is already assigned their tables, whenever you put in their bidder number and how much they're actually paying for it, it just automatically sorts everything for you right there and sorts the tables by highest to lowest, and it makes things really easy on the back end.
We listen to you. We hear. We want to make it as easy as possible. And for me, the sooner I can get to the sweets table, the better. Okay, moving on to some auction stuff.
Awesome. So kind of really honing in on the auction side of things with the silent online auction as a focus of a revenue stream. The blue side of things is being able to set up for success by planning and beginning procurement early. The earlier you can begin asking and soliciting organizations, the better. You have to set clear deadlines. That is really the hardest thing to hold people and hold everyone accountable to, is deadlines. We generally like to see, the sooner the better on it. And a lot of the times, the hardest part after getting the items is actually getting everything in. If you have too many people trying to load everything into the software and working all at once, it can be kind of messy and confusing. So the earlier you start, you can create packages and load your information into the software sooner, which makes your last minute adjustments way easier as opposed to loading everything in last minute and up to the day of your event. For me personally, I like to work at least 2 weeks out before our auction is slated to go online, so that we have plenty of time to work with the organization and adjust things. And we also set proofing deadlines so that the organization can review things before we actually go live to the public, so that if they have changes that they want to see made, we're able to make those in a timely manner and still be able to have a conducive workflow. A large thing that we really try to hone in on, starting bids and bid increments. If you start your bid increments too high, you'll pass them by. But it's very understandable that you want to be respectful to your donors and make sure that they're feeling honored by the starting bid and showing the fair market value. But generally speaking, we like to see your starting bids at your 30% mark of your fair market value and 15% bid increments as kind of the sweet spot there. Because if you're starting with 50 to 75% of your fair market value as your starting bid, people aren't going to really engage as much, and you're really limiting your audience and who's able to participate. Even if they don't end up winning, it's what gets you there, not where you start. On the red side of things, a lot of the times you want to get people hooked on a good deal. It's an auction versus a fundraiser. People want the idea of a deal. That's what really an auction is for. You want to create unique one-of-a-kind packages that get people to fall in love with what they're bidding on and actually get them hooked and interested. If it's just a gift card, it's just a gift card. But if you're creating a unique date night package that has gift cards in it, it's harder to kind of guess what the fair market value is. You want to really focus on the quality over the quantity. You can bundle and package things down to make these unique packages instead of just having tons and tons of individual small items. It really does end up helping your engagement overall. A small minority of clients that we see does still like to focus in on the paper bid sheets. It lets people feel like there's more exclusivity for attending the event. But really, that was more so pre-COVID. Post-COVID, we're seeing a lot more success with the online auction aspect because you're not limited to your in-person audience, and you're able to share that with other supporters of your organization who weren't in attendance and get that more engagement and be able to just really, really hone in on everything there.
Great tips. And then the purple passion.
Oh yeah, so we see huge success with online auctions. We are not just fundraising consultants and auctioneers, we are a full service auction house. So all we do is online auctions. They have completely taken over, and we will never go back to paper bid sheets. When you're able to publish online, you are accessing all of your supporters, not just the people in the room. We usually publish our auctions for a week before the event and close the night of the event before the live auction begins. So then people aren't staring at their phones during the live program. We want to have a clear delineation of online auction's over, live auction begins. We're engaged in person now. Even with the online auction side of things, we still see about 80% of the attendees end up as your silent auction winners and taking their items home at the end of the night. So that you kind of have that hour and a half of preview before your online auction actually ends. So your in-person people do still get to be your tire kickers and touch and feel everything in the auction and really get a feel for it before they decide to make their final bids. Because in an online auction, 90 to 100% of that traction comes in the last 10 minutes to 5 minutes to 1 minute. And that's where all of your engagement really happens. So with that, the 20% really being the people who were external and may not have been able to attend in person. But the big part is that they were included and they got to be a part of your event, even if they weren't there. With us being a full service auction house, we personally in-house start everything at $5 and go up from there. And no reserves, no showing fair market values, nothing. Everything goes up from there, and the audience decides what they want to bid on. And we do see success in that with over $1 million asset auctions. It's all in the psychology of it and really getting people hooked on the idea of a deal, even if they end up paying fair market value or above. It's all in the psychology. Like, I started low, I'm not going to let it go. I had it with and even if they don't win, people are still registering, you're still gathering their information, you're still seeing who's interacting with you, and it really is all about nurturing that engagement and participation year over year and being able to know who's really looking at and supporting you. What items got more bids versus what didn't. You're able to see that whenever you have everything online and know what people are looking for, as opposed to your in-person side of things where you only have that handful, and that's not really inclusive of everyone that may be looking to support you. So the example I have here is just of a RV auction that I was the manager for, where we started everything at $5, no reserves, everything sold. It was over $1 million asset class auction, and we did end up beating that. We went into over $1 million and what all of those RVs ended up selling for. So just kind of getting that little tidbits in your mind that maybe a 50 to 75% starting bid isn't the way to go, because you are barring people from participating lower.
Awesome. And then, like you said, you can do all of this on Auctria. This is just a sample page. If you haven't seen an online auction, shows you what the current bid is, what you need to click on to bid for something, and it automatically sends you outbid notifications. And when you win, it automatically sends you a notification that you've won. It really does make it easy to run the online auction. I see Jen Bode's email here, or note here. It says, once you switch to an online auction, you'll never go back. You're not the only one out there, Jennifer, for sure. So thank you for noting that. The online auction, you do allow people to bid immediately. It gives them a confirmation, shows them that they're the current highest bidder. You can also put in a max bid if you want to say, hey, I'm willing to bid up to $4,000 on this item. And if you get outbid, your bid will be rebid systematically, so you don't lose out on something that's precious to you. And shifting over to paid services versus volunteers, some blue tips and some red tips.
Yes. So using volunteers versus paid services, it can be night and day in your experience, in your actual attendee engagement and how your event feels. On the blue side, your volunteers do just want to help. They're eager and cost effective, and there's tons of different outlets where you can actually source volunteers from, whether it's your organization or a volunteer hub. So really knowing what's out there does make a difference in how you're able to train those volunteers and what they're able to kind of learn and be able to really just how you're looking to engage and utilize those volunteers. Volunteer hubs, if you don't know, sometimes your banks have volunteer hubs, your local organizations, young professional groups. Those are some outlets that we see up here that have volunteer hubs. So that may be different in the lower 48, but those are just some outlets that we see up here be really successful in being a good resource for volunteer solicitation. Especially if you don't have enough people from your organization. If you're a small organization and you don't have a lot of staff members to be able to allot those resources, consider reaching out to a volunteer hub. On the flip side of that, you have paid services where you are they are trained professional people. That is what we are. We are a paid service organization. We have different service levels that we offer. And the biggest thing there is that your paid professionals know the softwares, they are trained in it, and they know how to word and talk through everything with your attendees to make everything as seamless and troubleshoot everything right when those come up. And there's no confusion. On the red side of things, your volunteers and they really know the community personally, especially if they're from your organization. They may know the people attending. They may know more about your mission, and they may be able to speak more eloquently about that. They just want to help at the end of the day. But the trouble with that is that it can be hard to hold volunteers accountable. Whenever you don't know or you don't have a full grasp on those volunteers, it can be hard to wrangle them and keep them accountable for what they're supposed to be doing. So it can be a little bit of a struggle sometimes as well. And that can end up leading to longer lines during registration. The first thing and the last thing people remember at an event is standing in line. So how can we make those lines easier for people to be a part of, or negate lines completely? And the best thing to do is find the right places for those volunteers. You want to make sure that you have your chatty sales types, people doing the raffle sales or being greeters. If you have people who aren't comfortable socializing, maybe have them do coat check or behind the scenes work and moving inventory. If you have anyone who's lower mobility, consider having them setting decor or being greeters. If you have board members who aren't going to be busy running around, consider having them as line chauffeurs and greeters as well, to kind of move people through the lines and kind of help solicit and move everyone around in a way that makes sense. Being able to use volunteers and paid people in the right areas really helps to maximize the effectiveness and overall atmosphere that you're creating for the event. So you don't have someone who's super shy, just standing in the corner with a clipboard trying to sell things, and just really make sure that you're using them effectively.
Awesome. And I think I had one slide out of order there, so I apologize.
No worries.
And then, did you want to go to this one, max out the software? I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep track of your.
Yeah.
Okay.
So software really can make or break what your event and how your event does, and really just how everything flows for the night. A difficult software to work with is going to lead to a difficult attendee participation and frustration on everyone's end. Auctria is a fantastic software. On the blue side of things, you want to really keep the cost down in money, but you also want to keep the cost down in time. So knowing how your software is able to integrate into both of those really does make the logistics side of things a lot easier. And when you do choose a software that you love, figure out how it works. What is it capable of? There's so many people who use different softwares that aren't using them to their full potential because they don't know, or they're just used to what they already have. And with that red side of things, it can be hard to make those changes. You already know this software, you've worked through it, you know all the differences, you know all the nuance, but it can really change and maximize your attendee engagement if you consider switching softwares. And especially with lines, Auctria has been fantastic at helping to reduce line time and overall, just really engagement and making sure that everyone is able to bid quickly, bid easily. There are less barriers for people and hoops for people to jump through and able to get checked in, get registered, bid in the online auction. The less barriers you have, the easier the engagement, the more seamless your actual end user side of things is, the more people are going to be like, oh yeah, it was super easy. I would love to come again next year.
Right.
Our purple tip on that is really being able to, especially up here where we have such a small market in Alaska, we're really able to allow organizations to focus on their strengths and hire out their weaknesses. We're a full service event, full service auction house, and able to have a full service event suite that we offer to our clients. So we not only have the opportunity to be their auctioneer, but handle their silent auction, their registration, logistics, back-end support, and more depending on what they need. And not everyone has that ability, so I do want to acknowledge that, but we just have a really unique opportunity here that I want to highlight and let everyone know that you can offer more if you have the ability to, especially if you are comfortable and know the software. What are you able to learn and offer? What are you able to kind of bring to that engagement, so that if you are not an organization, if you're not the nonprofit, what can you look to maybe hire out so that you can focus on your actual donor relationships and sponsor relationships? Where can we kind of integrate things across the board and making sure that you are able to focus on what you excel at? With the way that we are such a close-knit community up here, we're always looking for the way that, how are we able to help? Where are we able to jump in and make sure that our local nonprofits are taken care of? And where are we able to be of service to people in that regard? We always are, even we see it, we also hire out what we don't excel at. So if we don't do AV, we don't do catering, but we recommend organizations that we know and trust to be a part of the event with us, and say, hey, maybe consider this person to do your AV. We work with them really well, so that the organization doesn't have to struggle and try and figure out how technology works and all of that. We're able to say, hey, we know these vendors, consider reaching out and see what they can do for you. So we're always looking to just be as seamless and really just cohesive as possible with the vendors in our area, and see how we can all work together.
Awesome.
Good data in, good data out. That is really kind of what we've been preaching here lately is being able to put good data into the software, get good data out. Being able to thank and acknowledge your sponsors and donors via the software or personal touch really, really makes a huge difference. Being able to capture all those details, knowing who attended, who your sponsors were, who donated items, who donated money, who all actually supported your event in any capacity. Auctria is able to capture that. And as long as you are putting that data in, you're going to be able to pull it out and make sure that you are nurturing those relationships consistently and being able to solicit earlier and say, hey, you were here last year. We're 6 months out. Do you want to be here again? Really just the more contact you're able to get in, you're able to get out. Another thing that is really important on your good data and good data out is pre-registration. Being able to prompt people and sponsors and table buyers, being able to say, hey, you have 8 tickets that you need to fill. I don't have any of their contact information. Please fill that out so we can make our registration process easier. A lot of organizations and people really do fill those out once you get closer to the event, and being able to say, oh, this table sponsor hasn't filled it out. Let me call them and see if I can get an attendee list. You send those pre-solicited emails and then follow up so that you can make this process a lot easier and plug everything in so that when you don't have a line whenever you're checking people in. Registration for our team has become less than a minute per person with Auctria, and with self check-in being introduced, we are down to less than 30 seconds a person whenever we're checking people in. It has become super, super easy, and really just that ease of use and access is key to attendee engagement.
That's phenomenal, Mekenzie. I appreciate you giving us that feedback. If you can leisurely grab that information the week before while you're sitting at the desk, why do it when there's a stack of people behind you? And you led into this so nicely, teed it up. The self check-in is a great way to do that. This is a created system email. Obviously, you would want to have your logo on there. Maybe soften up the language a little bit. I'm sure Mekenzie puts in some purple hearts and some purple things in there, and telling people, "Oh, come to the purple line. You know, you'll be on the fast line. Give them the champagne as they walk in." But you, as an admin, you can trigger the email or the text, and the guests can go ahead and add their credit card. And once they're checked in, they'll receive an email or a text with confirmation. And if you allow it, they can have their paddle number and their table number so they can just enjoy the evening or day or afternoon or whatever it may be. And then this is just a sample, if you haven't seen it, what your dashboard would look like from your laptop. The admin app has changing the world right now. You used to be able to just check people in and just put their credit card on file just for an iPhone. Now you've got Android, you've got Apple, you've got check-in, you've got check-out. You're going to be able to sell anything that's for sale on there. Go ahead and put your credit cards on file, and it's just expanding tremendously. Shortly, sometime this fall, we'll be adding in the ability to put in some additional data points. So if you want to come to our fall webinar, I'll be sure to share that with you. And then Mekenzie talked about maxing out the software. The reports are there: items, donors, participants, tickets, raffles, financial. And then each of those has a whole dozen of reports under it. And then each of those reports, you can go ahead and add in and reduce the fields as well. Then if you still need more info, you know what? I'm going to tell you to boot it out to Excel and, do your little pivot tables and all that fun stuff. So Mekenzie, you have some examples of some good data.
So this is an example of some thank yous that I've seen our clients do. These were posted on Facebook, but by all means, they could be a postcard, they could be a letter in the mail, they could have personal signatures from your board or anything like that. But being able to really just track and understand who your sponsors are, who is coming, who your engagement is, being able to do these large shout out, thank you sponsor, or a collaborative, hey, thank you for everyone who donated branded items, being able to like hone in on that. You're able to add logos into Auctria. You're able to add in all of their contact information. So whenever you do go at the end of your event to thank all of these people, you have all of their information right there. And it makes it so much easier to do custom pieces like this for those people.
And do you work on these before the event ends? You don't wait till the day after, right? You have these
Usually,
teed up.
yes. Usually, yes.
Figured as much. And then you have another one here.
Yes. So making it memorable, making an event memorable is the biggest part in making people want to come year over year. You don't want it to necessarily just be another banquet dinner or black tie event. You want to be the fundraising event of this season. You want to be the one that someone is saying, oh, I've got 2 events that someone invited me to. I'm going to that one. You want to be that event. And you can do that by making it black tie or playing around with themes. Play around with what you're fundraising for. If you are like the zoo, for example, they have their theme as Champions of the Wild. So really just see what your organization is raising money for, what your mission is, if you can tie in a theme to that at all, and really just play around with it, because then you play around with your decor, you play around with your naming conventions, you play around with everything and just kind of make it more fun and actually engaging to be a part of. It is so much fun. People love to dress up. People have outfits. They have silly dresses that they don't get to wear to regular things or regular events. People love to dress up and have fun. So really just making it more engaging for everyone is going to make people want to come year over year. Especially taking professional photos and like hiring professional photography, videography. It can make a huge difference in selling out your next year, because you have proof of people having fun, of being at the event. It really creates that FOMO of people wanting to be a part of it. Like, oh my gosh, that looked like so much fun. I want to be there next year. I have to be there next year. And even photo booths are a really great way to do this. Some of your AV companies do have photo booth packages. So maybe look and see what's out there for photo booths, and being able to really just nurture and make it more fun. Even if it is a heavy event, being able to have some fun aspect like that is going to keep people more engaged and not just like, oh man, that was really heavy. It can really help ramp up for next year and know what next year's going to look like. Set your next year's date in advance. Talk with your board and talk with your committee and see, okay, this event is always going to be on the first Saturday of the month. Make that a point and promote it at your event and say, hey, maybe we'll sell a head table in our live auction for next year's event, and really just create that energy around next year. So people are already planning in advance, like first Saturday of this month, I'm always at this event.
I love it.
And really, whenever you are looking in ways to make it memorable, you can tie in all of your revenue enhancers to that mission and to that engagement. For examples that I have here, the Wildlife Conservation Center, they took a standard mystery box and made it eagle or egg. If you got an egg, you were a winner. If you got an eagle, better luck next time. We have 10 chefs coming up this year for their heads or tails modification. We're doing mahjong tiles, where we have one chosen, and then everyone's going to kind of filter out based off of what tile we have chosen. For Mountain City Christian Academy, they had Paving Our Future, which was another mystery box item for Pick a Brick. If you had a golden brick, you were a winner. If you didn't, you were sorry, better luck next time. Equipping World Changers, another mystery box type of deal there, but we're doing it with unclaimed baggage. So if you buy a little mini suitcase and it has one of the winning items in it, you're a winner. If it doesn't, or it has a lower price point, sorry, better luck next time. There's also plenty of ways that you can really just make it memorable and be able to keep that engagement going. A good example that we're starting to see now more and more is the last hero standing, where you have you want to be the last person standing and the last person to make a donation. So you'll be doing your paddle raise and you'll have one person left, and whoever's the last person to make a donation gets some sort of prize. And that person, so we're like, countdown 3, 2, 1, and then if that person's the last person standing, they'll get that prize, or someone else will come in and say, I'm donating $100. So it just kind of goes back and forth, and it really pushes that engagement more and more throughout your event. And being able to kind of consider these things not necessarily instead of a paddle drop, but maybe in tandem with, or seeing like everyone kind of does a paddle drop nowadays. How can we integrate it and continue to push our revenue to where it's not just so standard? So the more memorable you're able to make it, the more engaged all of your attendees are going to be and want to nurture that year over year and being able to come again.
Awesome. And Mekenzie, this is how to get in touch with you. And even though you're in Alaska, you guys do consulting service, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Like I said, they are a great follow on social media. So go ahead and follow them. This is a good opportunity for me to also give you some information about our Facebook group, Auction Team Talk. I see a couple of the people in this webinar active on the Auction Team Talk page. Drop in any questions there, continue the conversation. Auctria as well is active on social media. I see a couple questions in here. I'm going to go through these, and I promise that we will not hang up until we answer every single one of them. There are a couple questions here, Mekenzie, talking about, Jennifer had a question about the dessert dash. They always have had dessert as part of their ticket price for 13 years. And I think she also mentioned in there, it took her 13 years to train her people. Correct me if I'm wrong there. They want to incorporate the dessert dash. How do they pivot? How do they explain that now you have to pay for your dessert? You have any suggestions on that?
So really, if you cut your catering and say catering does not have to include dessert, and really reach out and with your procurement committees, have your procurement committee also look at procuring desserts and being able to really push like in all of your communications and like saying, hey, we're doing a dessert dash this year. Being able to kind of promote that stuff in advance is really what's going to kind of ease that confusion that may happen. And also having a really effective auctioneer or MC on stage, or including it in your program booklet, explaining what the rules are, how it works, being able to have all of that written out and having an intermittent announcements throughout the night to kind of help ease any of the confusion that may come about. And they are welcome to, you know, put as low of an amount as they want on there, but they aren't going to get first choice of their dessert. And the goal of having different desserts solicited is that you have some really extravagant, awesome pieces, maybe from local businesses, or you have like a really awesome chef in your committee, in your organization, who is going to make this beautiful, awesome dessert. Really just being able to see what you're able to procure, because whenever they see those in person, and it's not just your standard cheesecake, one slice of cheesecake,
Right.
You have a whole fancy, gorgeous cheesecake that you could buy for your table. It's really, it's a lot more interactive and able to kind of just like be more engaged and really just help the flow and really just push that revenue just a little bit more.
Awesome. There's a note in here, Laura says, a lot of event planners are advising that we move away from the online silent auction because they are too time consuming. Any comments on that? Would you like to give your 2 cents?
Yeah, a couple of people were noting that it looks like we might be frozen right now. Wanted to make sure we were clear there.
Tracy, are you okay?
Yeah, it's fine for me here.
Okay, everybody seems okay.
So in regards to kind of shifting away, I think it's really weighing what your time is worth versus what you're getting out of the auction. So if it's a service that you're hiring out, or if it's something that you're doing internally, really, I think it's a matter of weighing what your organization is getting out of it versus what you're putting into it. If you're putting in too much time to where you don't feel like you're getting a return on investment, maybe step away from it. If it's something where you still have a lot of engagement on it and you're actually seeing a solid return on investment, then maybe continue doing it, or maybe consider designating only a couple of people towards it instead of your whole organization. Really just finding the balance there is really what we see. We're seeing some of our clients turn away from huge silent auctions to smaller silent auctions. It's less of a lift on their end, and they're able to focus on the quality of items they're procuring and soliciting, as opposed to trying to get as much as possible. And honing in on that has really helped the return on investment and being able to not be such a burden on the committee in the procurement efforts.
Awesome. Thank you. Question about reserves. Do you hide those on Auctria, or do you show the
We
value?
do keep all of that hidden. We don't show fair market values, and we also don't do buy it nows. It does kind of create a cap in people's mind on what they're willing to spend.
Mhm.
So if I see something's worth $100, why would I pay more than $100 unless I really like the organization? Hiding that fair market value and crafting those unique packages where it's harder to guess what the actual fair market value is really does push those bids higher than the fair market value because it's
Right.
not obvious. So we don't like to show that just because it can create a preconceived notion like, I'm not going to pay more than $100 for that. So it does really kind of like, it's an engagement psychology kind of thing.
Absolutely. Gabby asked about text messages. Do they get text messages? If you're on our Emerald or Diamond plan, yes, they get text messages, provided you've set up text messaging and they given you a text number. So
Yes.
I just want to caveat that. Some people get mad at me. I'm like, did they give you a number? No. How am I supposed to know? And then Margaret wants to circle back to the $5. Are you saying that they should start every online auction at $5? And by the way, Mekenzie and Alaska Premier Auctions are not the only ones that are doing this. And
So
having
yes and
tremendous
no. Yeah. With all of our in-house auctions, every single thing we sell starts at $5 and goes up from there. But I know there is a consideration of your donor who has this very high class item may be offended by that. So there's
Right.
a balance there, but the lower you start, the more engagement you'll get, and the closer to that fair market value you will end up getting, if not exceeding, because there was no barrier to entry. By having a barrier to entry, you're negating anyone who may have been willing to pay below that. And the more engagement people see, it's kind of like that game, recognized game. I see you're bidding on it and I see other people are bidding on it. I want in on it too. Really just nurturing that FOMO and seeing what's the balance in your donors and acknowledging those donors, but also being able to get people participating early and active.
Right. Laura has a question. Do you have any thoughts on how to manage the workload for the silent online auction? I'm going to probably split that question for her. One is probably the front end, getting everything loaded in the system. And with our online solicit items page, that makes it a lot easier because the donors as well as your team members can do that. And then probably at the event and distribution. You want to talk about both of those? Because I think they kind of split at that moment.
Yeah, so definitely if you're able to kind of split your committee into certain leads or heads and not just saying, all right, everyone does this. If you're able to kind of take one or two people to own and then trickle out from there, it can still be a little bit much. But if you kind of look at if you have a year over year list and seeing, okay, what performed well, what didn't perform well, and honing in what you actually want to solicit, you can kind of make it a little bit easier that way in your solicitation aspect. And instead of going to each business one by one, you can do a blanket email with your solicitation link that Auctria has in there. And the organizations can put that in there. But if you don't hear back from them, by all means, follow up with a call, follow up with an in-person touch, and really just hone in on that actual engagement piece, because it's easy to throw out an email. It's harder to ignore you when you're actually there in person. So maybe just dedicate one day every couple of weeks to go to all these businesses and organizations. It's really all about time management and how you want to divide your time and labor. For the actual conveyance side of things, what we like to see and what we do personally is our registration staff turns into our checkout staff, and we usually have like one runner person with each checkout attendee going and grabbing items and bringing them back up, so it's not as hectic and back and forth, and being able to visualize everything that's on someone's invoice, being able to say, all right, looks like you won all of these things, you hand off a sticky note, and those your runner will go and grab that. It kind of helps that item conveyance and distribution at the end of the night.
Absolutely.
Lori, Mekenzie, I'm going to jump in because there's a couple more questions while we were talking about the reserve and the $5 bids. And so,
Sure.
if you don't mind, there's two questions that came in. Jennifer asked for Lori, for reserves, like on those with the $5 bids, are they automatically hidden by Auctria, the reserve price? I guess, and then Margaret says, sorry, still stuck on the $5 beginning bid. If the fair market value of an item is $250, would you recommend for the bid increment what would you recommend for the bid increment to be, and still starting at $5?
Yes, they are starting them at $5 because they're getting more people bidding, and it'll eventually go up. You can follow Mekenzie and watch some of their auctions. They put them up on the pages all the time. I'm speaking on your behalf, Mekenzie, but
You're fine. So your reserve kind of would be your starting bid, depending on how you're looking to do things. If you have a reserve set in place, generally speaking, you want that to be your starting bid. So even if only one person bids on it, you are meeting what your reserve is, and then everything else would be above and beyond from there. With speaking to bid increments for something that is $5, the way that we handle it in-house is through manual adjustment, and it's usually $5 increments. But once you get to a certain point, you can absolutely change that to be larger increments. We have kind of like a sliding scale where once it hits a certain point, the increment changes. Auctria doesn't quite have that feature, but you can definitely, if you hit a certain point, you could manually go in and change that. But if it's easier in bite-sized chunks, the more you're going to get more people engaged, and just keeping it really easy to chew, easy to bid, easy to hit that button.
absolutely. Tracy, did you want to guide us?
Yeah, I think that was it. I can appreciate that stress, Mekenzie, you must walk your clients through. If I had a $400 item and I'm really going to start at $5, and that concern, what if it only sells for $125? So I think we can all appreciate that stress that you would feel.
Yeah.
And I would think if there is a reserve price, perhaps if it's a consignment in Auctria, if you do put a reserve price, the guest won't see what the reserve is, but they will, when they bid, know that they're under reserve. So
Right.
if you do put a reserve price, they don't see what it is, but that they'll know that there is one. So Mekenzie, perhaps that might change. I don't know if you ever deal with consignment, and I think that's likely where you're saying then you do want to have a starting bid. Because you know that it doesn't have that space, but you likely would have your starting bid at your reserve as low as it can be, and then see everybody jump in on that.
Right.
Definitely.
And if you have you're at a school and there's somebody that donated their artwork, and you're going to, crush their soul if you start something at $5, then don't start that one at $5. Start it at whatever they think the wine is worth, or whatever the art is worth, or whatever, and just make them happy. It's okay.
That's really the biggest thing. If you know you have a donor who's not going to be happy with you starting it lower, do what you can to nurture that and reassure them that the market will bear what they deem it's worth. Just because you have a $1,500 piece doesn't mean that it will actually sell in auction for $1,500.
Right.
Being able to communicate that to your donors, and really being able to nurture those relationships and say, look, we greatly appreciate this. We're going to put it in. We're going to start it at this. And being able to just reaffirm and just really nurture that is what makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And this is just one option. I mean,
Yeah.
You know your audience better. You know how they respond. If you've been using Auctria for multiple years, you can see your data in there. Pull it up, take a look at it, take a stroll down memory lane, and look at the bidding history on your past items and see what's happened. I guarantee you it's an upside down bell curve. As soon as your auction items, there's a lot of activity, and then it plateaus, and then at the end, boom, it soars again. Everybody is getting in at the last couple minutes there.